What do these species have in common? The bald eagle, gray whale, and grizzly have all been successfully preserved under the Endangered Species Act. So what is the ESA, you might ask? Enacted in 1973, the ESA provides for the conservation, protection, restoration, and propagation of threatened and endangered species of fish, wildlife, and plants, and for other purposes. The ESA is arguably the world's most effective biodiversity protection law. With over 1,500 listings, the Act has succeeded in improving the conservation status of many species and is thought to have prevented 227 extinctions. Before the ESA can take effect, species have to be listed. At present, the first step of listing a species is to receive a proposal. This can be done either internally by the Fish and Wildlife Service or, as is more often the case, by citizens or NGOs through a petition. If citizens petition, the Fish and Wildlife Service has 90 days to decide if there is not enough information to list the species, or if the listing might be warranted and is worth taking a closer look at. If this is the case, the Fish and Wildlife Service is required to conduct 12 months of research to decide if there is enough information and concern to list the species. This results in one of three outcomes. 1. The listing is not warranted. 2. The listing is warranted but other priorities exist, so the listing is warranted but precluded and becomes a candidate to possibly be listed later. 3. The listing is warranted, the proposed rule becomes a final ruling within another year, and the species is listed. This process takes a ton of time, and time is not on conservation's side. About 50% of species continue to decline or remain at high risk after being listed. 271 listed species, about 24% of those protected under the ESA, are in injurious neglect, which means they are in decline and their recovery efforts are underfunded. Amended last in 1988, the ESA needed some updates. That is, until January 27th, when Representative Pete Olson introduced H.R. 717 to the House of Representatives in order to revise the ESA and improve its efficiency. More commonly known as the Listing Reform Act, the bill's proposals include a review of the economic costs in the listing process and allows the Secretary of Interior to prioritize certain petitions by changing the order of actions. Additionally, the bill replaces the 90-day timeline with "to the maximum extent practicable" and replaces "within 12 months" with "as expeditiously as practicable." Long story short, there's finally a bill being proposed to revise the ESA, but should we support it? There's no doubt that the ESA needs to look at its spending. Studies found that less than 25% of the $1.2 billion spent each year implementing recovery plans is actually allocated to the recovery process. These studies also found that simply spending more does not equate to better species protection. Taking a closer look at the costs of protecting each species and their likelihood of making a successful recovery could help the Fish and Wildlife Service make more educated decisions on where funding should go. Some researchers estimate that including an economic analysis in the listing process could erase funding deficits for more than 180 species. However, there are several fundamental issues with H.R. 717. By replacing both the 90 days and within 12 months with vague terms, the bill removes any sort of timeline for the listing process and reinforces the already vague language of the ESA. Vague terminology already contributes to delays in the listing process, as the Fish and Wildlife Service struggle with the definitions of fundamental terms, such as threatened and endangered. Adding additional vague terms will further convolute the process. As we said before, time is not on conservation's side. Listing process delays can mean more species lost, as resources aren't allocated to them in time. Delays exacerbate other listing issues, such as information decay. When a species remains in listing limbo for too long, its data becomes outdated, and this could send it back to the stage of having insufficient information for listing, which makes the process even longer, and the spiral continues. Despite these issues, H.R. 717 passed the House by a vote of 22 to 13, but it has yet to become an amendment, so there's still time for us to do something about this. If you care about endangered species and the efficiency of your tax dollars, make your voice heard. Contact your representative and voice your opinion on H.R. 717 to minimize its impact on the ESA.